All right. Well, good evening. I'm Jeremy Staley, and I'm with CEC. And CEC is a consulting firm that works with the City of Tulsa on their neighborhood traffic calming program. With me tonight is Mary Kate Rowe, who assists me in that program. And we also have 3 staff members from the City of Tulsa. We have Russell, Tracy, and Michael. And we're glad that they could join us here tonight, and they can help us answer some questions if need be as well. So this is indeed the traffic calming program for East 33rd Street, the public meeting for East 33rd Street from Peoria Avenue to Utica. And I'm just going to lay a few ground rules out. I know we only have 3 of the citizens along that street here tonight, but just for documenting all this, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody here, and I will unmute you as soon as I'm done with the presentation. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box along the way, and we'll answer them when we're done. Or you could just ask them verbally whenever I'm done with this presentation. I believe so. So I told you that this meeting is being recorded. We're going to place it on the Improve Our Tulsa website, and that should be posted here in the next few days. And we will begin. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody here. Okay. I will allow you all to unmute yourselves as soon as I'm done. Okay, so this project started with an application from Mr. Pollard, who was concerned about speeding on 33rd Street, and he submitted an application. By doing so, Mr. Pollard became what we call a traffic calming advocate for the street. And so he runs the petition process and is the voice of that neighborhood for this project. And this project, the traffic calming program is made up of primarily 2 warrants. They are the 85th percentile speed must be 5 miles per hour over the speed limit or greater. And this project had an 85th percentile speed when we did our traffic study of 30.6 miles an hour, so it certainly qualified. The second warrant is the average daily traffic, or ADT as we commonly call it, must be between 600 and 5,000 vehicles per day. And this project had 689 vehicles per day at one of our counters, which well exceeded the number. If a project warrants, there's also a few other factors that we take into consideration, and I thought I would list those here. That way everyone is aware of it. First off, the street shall provide access to abutting residential property, and apartment complexes are considered just one property. We don't take into account everybody in that apartment. It's just one particular voice, if you will, in the petition process. The street should not have or will not have more than 1 traffic lane in each direction. This is intended for residential streets, not urban collectors and so forth. The street segment must be at least 300 foot in length, which this street certainly does qualify. The street shall have a regulatory speed limit of 30 miles per hour or less, which we do, it's 25. The street shall have curb and gutter to prevent vehicle runarounds, which have happened in years in the past. So we make it to where typically is curb and gutter, and we do have that. And then speed humps will not be installed on residential streets in which there are traffic signals at both the beginning and end points of that, where the collector residential street meets a collector, which we don't have that on this project as well. So once a project warrants and passes all these factors, construction, and if construction funding is available, the next step is to go through the petition and endorsement process, which Mr. Pollard went through. We provide him a list of street addresses that are along that entire street. Now, some of them do not have a mailing address off of that street because it is an adjacent street or a connector street, but the house does rest along that alignment. And so Mr. Pollard took that list and went through, and the requirements in the petition process are 80% of the residences along that street must sign that petition process, either in favor or opposing it. They must sign it. If there is nobody living in that property or it's for sale, it is excluded from that total list. And I believe on this project, we had 2 or 3 homes that were excluded from that list. Also, the second requirement is at least 2/3 or 67% of those residences must be in favor of this petition of the traffic calming program, speed humps. And in this case, I believe 81% of the people were approached, and every one of them were in favor of the traffic calming program. Move on to my next sheet. If the street segment falls within a neighborhood association or a homeowners association, there is an endorsement statement that must be signed by the officers on the board, that way showing that they accept and approve this traffic calming program, knowing that the impact of this one street could have an impact on the adjacent streets as well. So they are the voice for the whole neighborhood. Being that that does not exist in this neighborhood, that was not needed. Once that petition and endorsement process is complete, we design a speed hump layout, and those speed humps are located at spacings as directed by the City of Tulsa's traffic calming program, and we have certain criteria which I can show you if you all wanted to look at what that criteria is about how close the speed humps are supposed to be spaced out. And so just note, we don't just pick random locations where these speed humps go, we fit that within that criteria. And one of the parts of that criteria is the speed humps are not to exceed 600 foot from center to center. And this is done to prevent cars from speeding very quickly in between those speed humps. If that length gets too distant, they gun it, and it creates a speeding problem on its own. So I'm now going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you the layout that we have for this project. So we have the street number, the address numbers on all the houses. So feel free to take a look at that and see where your house is. Give me just a moment to pull this up. Okay. Right. Okay. All right, Mary Kate, can you see the screen well enough? Or Kent and Steve, can you see the traffic calming plans? Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is the beginning of the project at Peoria Avenue, and you can see 33rd Street shown on here. And we show the distances in there. We have 381 foot for the very first spacing. And the reason why we don't have this in the area in between here is we have a lot of driveways for commercial properties really close to there. So we couldn't put a speed hump in there very easily. So we started it right where the residences began. And then the next speed hump, you see there's a match line A, which then goes down to the second plan view and showing the speed hump there in between, let's see, 1425 and 1429 East 33rd Street. There are some existing stop signs on this project. At the ones that are along 33rd Street, we plan to leave those in play at this point in time. However, based upon request of the citizens on that street, if they want those removed, we will do a quick study and work with the City of Tulsa to determine whether we can pull that stop sign or not. There's a number of warrants that go into it dealing with sight distances and so forth. And so it's possible those stop signs may not be able to be removed, but we did want to let you know that if that is something you all want to pursue, we could look into that. All right, I'm going to move on to the next sheet. So here is the second half of the project. We have speed humps up at 1520 and 1524 East 33rd Street. And then just east of Trent Avenue, we have another one between around 1617 East 33rd Street. Notice the distances between those two speed humps is only 310 feet. And then looking down at the second view on this, just in between Troost and Utica, we have one more speed hump. So I believe we've got a total of 6 speed humps on this project. Sorry, 5. We've got 5 speed humps on this project. The next sheet I'm going to is the standard for the speed hump. These speed humps are 22 foot long along the street, and they extend from one side of the street to the other with approximately a 2 foot gap between the curb face and where a 24-inch taper begins. That gap is there for drainage purposes to allow water to move through the gutter, as well as bicyclists to be able to navigate through if anyone is riding a bike on the street. As you can see in the top left corner, section AA, it shows that this is a parabolic transition from the street up to the speed hump. And the table is roughly 10 foot wide at the top where it's flat. And that transition is made over a 6 foot distance on each end at the beginning and end of the speed hump. As you can see, these speed humps are approximately 3.5 inches high at the table location. The middle view and the lower view show the striping plan that we have. for these speed humps. These are standard striping plans to help provide visibility for people driving on the street. And we also have speed hump signs with a little arrow pointing down that are located on the corners of each speed hump. That way people driving can have a secondary form to let them know that this speed hump is right there. And that is also done if the streets have ice or snow on it. When the city vehicles plow it, they're able to know where those speed humps are so they don't damage the speed humps. And so going over all this, I'd like to discuss the funds where this project would be funded from. The construction funding is being provided through the Improve Our Tulsa 2 bond issue that was voted on last fall. There was a certain amount of money set aside, and within that, of course, that is extended over a multi-year process. And so there's so much money that's being budgeted every year for construction funds. The construction will be done by City of Tulsa Street and Stormwater Forces, and they've constructed a number of these in the past and do a very good job. And the timing of when they can construct that is based on their availability. They have a job to do, lots of different functions across the city, and when availability comes up, they will move forward with these speed humps. This is a priority for the city to get moving on these speed humps since that money was voted in last fall. And so I believe they'll do their best to try and get these speed humps constructed before the cold weather sets in, which typically in early to mid-November is when the temperature gets low enough to where it's difficult to construct asphalt paving on projects here in Oklahoma. As far as where we are right now, we're going to accept any comments from everybody in this meeting and over a 2-week period from anyone who views this video on the Improve Our Tulsa website. And they'll have 2 weeks to be able to provide comments or ask questions. And we'll be happy to answer those. The questions need to be sent to me, Jeremy Staley. My email address is Jeremy, Jeremy, .Staley, STAHLE, @connectcec.com. That's connect like connecting a cable, followed by cec.com. Or you can call our office at 918-663-9401. And you can visit with me, or if I'm not available, you can ask for Mary Kate and she'll be happy to help you and answer your questions or write those down. Again, that comment period is 2 weeks, and we'll try and get this up as quickly as possible on the city's website. And I see we've got some questions. Okay, I'm going to write my email and phone number in the chat. That way everybody's got that, so I will do that here real shortly. Thank you for asking that, Russell. Let's see, I believe that's the main thing. So I am now going to open up this. I believe I have unmuted everybody or have the ability for you all to unmute yourselves. Let's see, we're going to pull that off. Allow you to unmute yourself. So now you are unmuted, and so you're welcome to ask any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them at this time. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but I can pull that back up very easily if you all do have any questions. So does anybody have any questions over this process or over the speed hump layouts? Yes, sir, Kent. I can ask you to unmute. Can you unmute it now? Okay, I turned off the allow them to. I am trying to unmute you, Kent. And I clicked on to ask you to unmute. Did it go?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can.
I need to learn that trick too, and I really don't want people to ask questions, all right? So first off, Jeremy, thank you really for presenting this information and for the city taking interest. I don't know if I've met the person that did the petition, but also thank them for their effort and really trying to increase the safety of this area. So the question I have is, and I'm sure there's science, would you kind of just talk a little bit for a novice like me on why the speed bumps are preferred compared to adding more stop signs on the intersections along 33rd?
That's a great question, Ken. I appreciate you asking that. Stop signs are not a method of controlling traffic. Stop signs need to be warranted. There's strict guidelines by MUTCD, the Manual for Uniform Traffic and Control Devices, that are set to warrant stop signs. And it's a function of predominant traffic flow and so forth. And the city of Tulsa follows that strictly to determine when stop signs go. And so the other thing is, people who like to speed through neighborhoods, a lot of times they blow through stop signs anyway. So the stop signs are there more or less for the people that obey the traffic laws. And I know people may speed a little through neighborhood, but by and large, most of us don't go flying through neighborhoods. If they want to do that, I'm all for people speeding on a highway, just because it's a safe environment for faster speeds, and neighborhoods are not. So again, it violates the warrants typically within the MUTCD, and then it's not a primary traffic control device. The speed humps that the city of Tulsa implements, that we're part of with this program, these have been studied over many years with different agencies, and the city of Tulsa put a lot of research into that. And they realize that these are big, but they are also very economical to build and construct, and they last a very long time. And so there are other devices out there that are smaller. They may be cheaper, but they will fall apart and need to be replaced on a much shorter time span. So when you look at the time value of money, these asphalt speed humps are the most economical. Are you able to unmute yourself again, Kent? Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's see. Let me ask you to unmute yourself again. I guess this thing doesn't want to work very well, but
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you. Really, I don't want to dominate this, so I'll ask the final question on my part. I take it, I did walk the street and looked at where these were going to be placed, and it looks like you guys did take into consideration drainage, so it wouldn't impact drainage, going into the sewer. So
yeah.
I think that was one of the big criteria.
Yep, that is correct. Yeah, we look for manholes, we look for drainage inlets and so forth. Even streets, yard side drains that come through the curb. We try to avoid those if at all possible.
Okay, thank you again.
You're welcome. I'm here to answer any questions, so feel free to ask them. Don't feel like you're taking up this whole meeting at all. Steve, did you have a question? If I've got to unmute everybody manually here, I'll be happy to do so. I've turned off.
There we go.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
No, I just wanted to say it's been a long process, and I appreciate for those on the call. It's a very time-consuming effort on behalf of CEC, and the city's real busy, et cetera. So just real thing. There was a question, I think it was Kent that asked it regarding stop signs, and I'm sure there's a process equally, that you go through to add them. Is there any contemplation? There's a couple of T-bar streets that don't have any stop signs that people just blast through without even pausing. Is there contemplation about adding stop signs going in the facing north, heading on to 33rd Street from the other feeder streets?
I see what you're saying. Let me look through these plans here real quick and see where that might be. I know we marked where some of those stop signs were on here. Let's see. It looks like we've got stop signs on Rockford.
Yep.
We've got a four-way stop sign on there. It looks like Quincy has, at least it shows in our plans, we've got a stop sign coming up from the south on Quincy. However, there is not a stop sign on 33rd there. It's just on Quincy coming from the south. Moving along, looks like Trenton is one of those that does not have any stop sign on it. On both there's one on the north side coming from the north, but the leg on the south side appears it does not have a stop sign at it. And then Troost has stop signs, but not on 33rd Street. So it looks like you're right. It is Trenton Avenue on that southern leg. We can visit with the city about that to determine if we should place a stop sign on that south leg coming in from Trenton to help regulate that a little better. And we'll visit with them about that after this meeting. And
okay.
That's a good point to ask. I don't like residential streets that don't have, I get it on the main roads, the main streets, the primary streets to have those, but when you've got side streets that don't have it, I don't understand the logic of that just for safety purposes. When
I agree. And they did the safe sidewalks project on a few streets going into Elliott Elementary. And you know, you still have that situation going from Utica to Peoria on 33rd, where there's partial sidewalk just in front of Zinc Park, but you still have a lot of pedestrian traffic actually walking in the street. So that combined with the speed humps, hopefully it'll just make it a much safer environment. And maybe it's just not that attractive to use like at 36th Street, like the way it has been historically, you know, as a really an arterial street instead of a residential neighborhood street. So.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we'll ask them about that stop sign on that southern leg of Trenton. Or sorry, that's Troost. Nope, it is Trenton Avenue.
Thank you.
Barbara, do you have any questions at all?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for Steve for spearheading this. We are a new neighbor to Brookside. We've been here a year and we live at 1327 East 33rd, the first house in from Peoria. So the speed bump or hump will be by our house, or I guess close to our property line, if I read that correctly.
That is correct.
And I am all in favor of it. So I just wanted to let you all know that I think it's much needed. We walk a lot. That's one of the reasons we moved here. And there is, I think, a danger because people do use it as a cut through, and there are just, it is too populated with people. Walkers, the sidewalks have helped, but there is still a lot of traffic, people pushing their babies or helping their children walk, and the dog walkers. So I think I am very grateful to you, Steve, for doing what you've done to get this taken care of. So I thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate the city and Jeremy's team, and tell you what, it's great. It'll help everybody. I was always so concerned it wasn't a matter of if, but when someone was seriously injured or killed on that street. And that's the driver. I've got little kids, and you know, that's number one priority. So
absolutely. One of the city staff members just asked that as far as that stop sign, they have a documenting system whenever someone calls into the city that keeps track of it, and that way they're pinged and they have to answer it within so many days. And so that system, Steve, if you wouldn't mind doing it, call the 311 number and put in a request for that stop sign. And that way the city's got documentation of who requested it, and they'll follow up on that. And that's the typical process for them to go through, and they'll respond in a timely manner to you and let you know what they're looking at it, and then let you know the result of that when it's all said and done. So if you wouldn't mind doing it, that'd be the best.
No, I'll do it.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I'll be happy to answer them. And if not, we'll end this meeting and we'll be out of here by 7 o'clock.
You just think by November, probably before Thanksgiving, they'll be underway.
My hopes are with our 2-week review process, we're looking here, and you know, by the middle of September, we would get past that process. And so I would hope that the city forces could get these done within about the next 2 months, which typically by mid-November is when it really gets too cold. There's been some years where a cold front strong comes in and it's just downhill from there. Other years, it's been warm enough all the way into early December or mid-December, but they'll do their best to fit this in. The construction budget, the funding is available. It's just a matter of getting their crews opened up from their normal business to do that. But with them only having 5 speed humps, I would imagine they can probably get this done before that cold season hits in. So we should be in good shape to get these installed before.
The dollars are there for this specific project.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
They've been allocated already.
So the holdup would not be the funds. The holdup would be if disaster strikes and the streets and stormwater crews are dealing with a lot of problems and they can't get off to do that, because it's important to the streets and stormwater department, but they do have a primary job to do. And so if they are fixing streets that have caved in or what have you, whatever issues going on, then this will take a back seat. But my hopes are with them having that much time between now and mid-November, they should be able to get that done. All right. If anybody else doesn't have any other questions, I want to thank you for attending this meeting. I appreciate you taking your time for this. out of your busy schedule. And thank you again. You all have a good evening. If you do have any other questions, I've got my email address written out there in the chat box. Again, it's jeremy.staley@connectcec.com, or you can call me at 918-663-9401. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Welcome.